K. McLeod. What I have on the bench here before us is America's favorite chainsaw to work on, the Mini Mac. Good old top-handled Mini Macs. Love them, hate them, swear by them, swear at them. But I do know once you get one of these little guys up and going, they punch way above their weight class. And you'll be the guy wandering around the backyard with the chainsaw in hand, just looking for stuff to cut because you don't want to put it down. But I've been getting a lot of questions lately of where do I find parts for these little guys. I guess the models are, pushing 50 years old. New parts are practically impossible to find, and if you do, they're astronomically priced. I get most of my parts on eBay, but I try to buy them as lots, as the bucket o' Mac parts, and then I'll sort through them and use what I can. But for someone who just has a grandpa's old little Mini Mac around and they want to get it going, let me start with what parts are interchangeable amongst these Macs. All right. Now, starting with, say, the Mini Mac 1, 1A, the 6, the 6A. Then we have the 25, the 30, the 35, and the last in this type of series, the 35AS, which is the Auto Sharp. Now, from the first Mac Mini up until the Mac 30, which is, the 1, the 1A, the 6, the 6A, the 25, and the 30, all the engines in these models were 1.9 cubic inches. With the advent of the Mini Mac 35, they bumped it up to 2.0 cubic inches, or 32 cc's to you and me. And from that line on up, they've all been 2.0s. But the form factor is exactly the same. Same size. They give you 3 more cc's. Everything's a bit, there's no replacement for displacement, so it's 3 cc's more gooder. I guess we'll start with the carbs, the fuel system. Okay, let me see if I got these two guys over here. I'll tell you what, let me set up for that, and we'll discuss the carbs and how they're interchangeable amongst all the models. Fuel system. Throughout the entire Mini Mac line, there were 2 carburetors used. First was the Walbro MDC. Now, pretty much any MDC except for the MDC-1 will fit on a Mac Mini. The MDC-1, you see how the fuel barb comes out? On the MDC-1, it extends that cover down a little bit, and then there's an opening that accepts the fuel fitting that was used on the Power Mac 6. Essentially from the top cover on down, it's the same exact carb, but there's a different kit that is specific to the MDC-1. So MDC-2 on up, and the other flavor is the Zama M1 M7. This is an M7 here, and again, they made slight improvements over the years, but any carburetor, any one of these 2 carburetors will fit in any Mac Mini. Now, I've done a couple of videos where I've done exchanges where I've taken a 110 or something with a yellow case, or a Mac Mini 30, 35, and put a Zama carburetor onto an older engine. Now, they fit pretty much, they're pretty much a 1-to-1 replacement, exactly, except on the Zama here, it sticks out just a little further. From this point on, it's a hair thicker. So depending on how the case is, how they cast the case, this little area right here is where the top of that carburetor touches. Some cases work fine, but some of them, I guess it's a little tighter, maybe a little thicker, depending on the quality of the casting. But you may, right at that little point, have to Dremel out a little bit, just a tiny bit, to give it the extra clearance that it needs. For the most part, throughout the entire line, these 2 are interchangeable. So there's an MDC, and this gal over here, off a later model, which is the 2.0 with the black case, uses the Zama M1 M7. But if you wanted to take this carb and put it on a Mini Mac 25, not a problem. Now the gaskets, you know, the carb gaskets, the intake manifold, and the gasket down at the bottom, they're all exactly the same regardless of which carburetor you use. And I think I have, yeah.
3 days.
Here you go. Using gaskets. Now these are your carb gaskets. The semi-rectangular one goes up against the body. So you have the, let's see, this gasket here goes against the carb. You have the intake, little plastic intake over here, and then up against the engine itself is this style, a little more rectangular. And regardless of which carb you use, they both use the same gaskets. Let's see. And as far as the fuel tank itself, universally across the entire line, they use this type of tank. The split tank, and there's a round fitting. Here we go. Round fitting that goes here. All right, fittings are universal. This one here is busted. It's supposed to be a little nub at the end that you can attach a hose to. But throughout the entire line, they use the same exact tank. In other words, if it's the black case, the yellow case, they even use it on the Pro Mac 510 and the Super Pro 40. Uses the same exact tank. Let's see. Yeah, that should be about it as far as fuel system is concerned. Well, I guess we can start with the electrical next. If you have points ignition, and you'll know because you'll have this little box over here that houses your points. Okay, and let's see, there's a different one here. Okay, white, and okay, here we go. Regardless of what color, yeah, what color. I mean, the boxes are exactly the same. Why they changed the color from year to year is unknown, but they're the exact same box. They all take the same exact points, the same exact condenser, and the same exact coil throughout the entire line that has points ignition. Now, in the advent, I mean, when they introduced the 2.0, which is anything that started with the new black cases, they made a couple of changes. They changed it to electronic ignition, and you'll know you have electronic ignition because there won't be any points case there. And they made a slight change to the coil themselves. Now, for points ignition, you can see it has this rounded style. And for points ignition, because they added that little extra, you don't need an extra condenser or any of that fun stuff. They made it just a little bit thicker, and it's sort of flat on this side here. It's slightly girthier. So that's how you can visually tell the difference. And let's see, they put a let's see, it looks like an 809 288 632 and then a 3151 beneath it. Now sometimes those things are all rubbed off and you really can't tell. But as a basic shape, the round ones are for point ignition, those with the flat tops are for electronic. Now, up until, let's see, from the Mini Mac 1 all the way up to probably the Mini Mac 35 Auto Sharp, they all used points ignition. You know, from this black, when they started with using the black cases, the 2.0, the Mini Mac 130, you know, 120, 110, 130, 110, 120, 130, 140, and the 160S. You know, they're all pretty much the same exact machine. They just kind of changed the stickers on the outside of it. Now, if you have a old Mini, say a 30, 35, and the coil's bad or you can't find it, and you say, well, can I change it from points ignition to electronic? And they say, yes, but you'll have to change the you'll have to change the flywheel along with it, because the magnets in the electronic flywheel are in a different place than they are for the points ignition. So you have to change the coil and the flywheel in order to do that. Everything else should be exactly the same. The timing is what, 26 degrees before top dead center, so that they're pretty much universal across the line. Condensers are all the same. All the electronic ignition modules are the same for pretty much any model that it pertains to. Now, with changing the flywheel, right, in order to change the flywheel, you'll probably have to change the starter that's in there, because the poles are different. When you take, let's see, yeah, this type of starter here with like a little metal spider on here, part that actually grabs the poles, they're designed for this particular style, where they're metal poles and they kind of grab in that little notch, and they're not interchangeable. If you change it and you have either these flat-sided metal poles, or on the electronic, these plastic poles, you're going to have to change the type of starter that goes in there. Now, they used to sell, because these starters here were a pretty bad design. As you can see here, they're fairly weak, and if you can find one that doesn't have a crack along this line there, it's probably worth its weight in gold. But this little cover here, as you can see, was spinning. Someone tried to fix it and epoxy it. I mean, they didn't do a half-bad job, but it wound up snapping anyway. Now, say you have an old style, and you want to change change over to put the newer style poles on it. I think the McCulloch used to send a retrofit kit for these, because the starters were breaking too often. Yeah, they used to sell a kit with either these poles or the plastic ones, and a new. I wish I knew the name for this thing, but in any case, the part that engages the poles, the name for it escapes me at the moment. So they used to sell kits, but if you have one, like, say, with a trashed out Mini, and you want to fit it onto, say onto a black case, or like here with the monogram, I like those better. You can simply unscrew that little screw in the center, pull off the old one, put this new one on, put the screw back in, and you're done. Everything works just the way it should. The springs match up, all the insides match up, and you can take your new flywheel and it'll work. Let's see. Yeah. I think if you try to use this particular style with those poles, you're gonna wind up with a a starter that looks like that. They just simply either that, or it won't catch at all, and you'll be pulling the string and nothing will happen. Okay. Now for the Mini Mac, there are two basic clutches that they used. One is a spin-on type, and the other one has a tapered fit, which is this type here. You can tell the difference. The tapered fit has this little cover over it. And although the sprockets are interchangeable with any model, unfortunately, the clutches are not. Why? Because there's a different taper on the end of the shaft. You can see this has this little shoulder right here, and on the tapered shaft it does not. So it'll make the clutches sit in the wrong position. So although the gears and all of that is interchangeable, the sprockets, the drum, the clutches themselves are not. So you have to decide which one you have, and then get the one that's appropriate. pretty straightforward. The mufflers on the Minis are pretty much interchangeable along the line, depending on what clutch cover you're going to use. For the flat style, basically this is the cover that goes on there. If you try to put it on one with a stack muffler, it doesn't quite sit the way it's supposed to. It's a little too tall. You can see everything's at an angle. A little too tall. If you're going to use a stack, you need to use this shorty style that fits in there like that. Now, switching over, say if you have a stack and you want to put a flat muffler on there, these the opening for these the screw holes are a little smaller. This uses a regular screw that holds the stack muffler down, and on the flat ones they use a shoulder bolt, and the bottom of the shoulder bolt is a little thicker than these holes will allow. So you either have to get smaller shoulder bolts to fit in there. I'm not sure exactly what the size on this is. That you'll have to tap, drill and tap to make them larger to accommodate them, or just get smaller bolts. But you can't. I mean, like in this case here, they took smaller shoulder bolts, put them down, and use them in place of the originals, and you get a flat muffler on a 30, on a Mini-Mac 30. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Those are the two basic styles. Now, when you get up to the later model, I think it's like 155, 165. Let me see. Maybe I can grab that muffler. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, they kind of made a fancier muffler for it. Made a fancy cover and handle, and I made I guess it's pretty much this type here. Sits across, there we go, in this particular angle here, with long bolts, and that screws in. And let's see, in this position here, in this vertical position, that's how it stayed. Two bolts go in there. The cover was larger, and the exhaust gases came out forward rather than down. But that's pretty much on those two specific models, the 155 and the 165. And even though they're yellow cased, those two come with electronic ignition and a Zama. And they had little exceptions here and there. Let's see. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for mufflers. Air filter covers. This little round filter, every single Mini-Mac. I use them all from the beginning to the end. Same type of filter. Little round guy. Fits right in there, like that. And has a little circle here to put pressure down on the cover and keep it close to the body. And regardless of which type is there, filter's exactly the same. Now there are two different types of filter covers. In the early models, you had this type up until the 35 with this little snap that holds it in there, little notch in the body. That holds that on there. And then after that, they went to this little screw type for the 35 Auto Sharp. Rather than the notch, they put a little tapped hole in there. And these go on, and then screw down into that hole. And that's pretty much the two basic types. And they came in a couple of different colors. And they also came in a gray on a few models. I think they're like the silver edition they tried for a couple of years. But basically, that's it. determine which one you have, and you're good to go. For the most part, they're pretty much interchangeable, but they come in, as far as I can tell, 3 different varieties. There's the standard, there is the operator presence, okay. The trigger, without the little operator presence lever being activated, and there's an operator presence with a throttle lock, which came on the black cased minis. When they put the Zommer on, they put a throttle lock on there to lock on the high idle to start it. Right here, where you'd squeeze the operator presence, pull the trigger, push the button in, it's on high idle, squeeze the trigger, button pops out, idle drops down. Now, as far as I can tell, they're pretty much interchangeable, but if you want to put, say, throttle operator presence with a throttle lock on a Mini, now as far as the trigger is concerned, ergonomically it's all the same. You don't need to pull the operator presence lever, but you'll lose all those little safety features. And as far as being able to lock the throttle itself is a little different. There's no hole cut out so that the pin pops in. Right, so you can probably change over. If you're using one that, say, if you have a back 25, they should be, as far as dimensionally, the same. It's just on the back of this handle they're a little different. There's a hole here, and there's a sort of serrations, like a little ratchet on the back of here. I don't have one. Do I have one? No, I don't have one present. Let's see what I got over here. Do I have a handle? No, I don't have the new style out. But inside here, actually you can probably see it. See those little cuts right in there. Those are to hold the trigger. So it holds it in it holds the operator presence, and it holds it in that locked position. As far as ergonomically, if you bust a handle and you bust a non-presence, non-operator present handle, and you want to put this one on, in a pinch, you can do it. Each one of them fit. I'm saying even as far back as the 25, they fit, and finish up what you're doing until you can find a proper handle for it. Or if you don't want the safety features and you just want to keep it like that, well, you can. They'll all switch back and forth. But if you do get an operator presence and a throttle lock, you need to get, you'll need to change the trigger itself. They should all be in the same. It's basically the same case. They're all in the same position. It's just the back side of the trigger that's a little different. That gives you a basic overview of what's interchangeable amongst the Mac Mini models. As parts, I guess eventually will start to dry up. Like I said, the model's now 50-something years old, and the only way to get yours up and running is to harvest the dead one. If there's anything I haven't touched on, or anything you're like, oh no, you're wrong, that's not possible, hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you want to see. Any questions you have, and if I've got something completely and utterly wrong, let me know. Thanks for watching.